Get ready. You're listening to Give God 90 live.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
There we go. I think we got everything up and running and going where it's supposed to go. Welcome, everyone, to Give God 90. We are live on a Thursday night. My name is Jerry Mitchell. My wife Myra's with me here this evening.
Hi, everyone.
And I'm laughing because a few minutes ago, I said I really want to open tonight with greetings, fellow survivors. Of course, referring to what's going on, and we're going to discuss a little bit of that. Well, actually, quite a bit of that tonight. First, let me remind you, if you haven't done so, you can download the Give God 90 app. It's free. Hi, Pam. Thanks for watching.
Hi, Pam.
It's free. Don't forget that. Don't forget to go to the website. Don't forget to buy the books. And speaking of books, what?
Go ahead. I was just wondering if you should wait a little bit.
No, I'm not going to wait for him.
No, not him. For everybody.
Dr. Sean Michael Greener has his new book is out. It's released and available on Amazon and some other places. I will put up the link for that, or he will put it in the comments section or something from Facebook and on Spreaker later. For such a time as this week's Purim. It's a time, of course, if you're familiar with the book of Esther, it's when Haman and Esther and Mordecai, I shouldn't say Esther, I should say Hadassah and Mordecai, and that whole lesson plays out for us. And Mordecai gives his niece some really, really good information. If you want to read, and I have it marked in your Bible on Esther chapter 4, verses 13 through 16, we're going to hear something. Mordecai tells Esther something here that I don't think she was expecting.
Mordecai told them to reply to Esther with this answer. Do you think in your soul that you will escape in the king's household more than a few Jews? For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Who knows whether you have attained royal status for such a time as this? Esther sent this to reply to Mordecai. Go, gather together all the Jews who are in Shushan and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will fast in the same way. Afterwards I will go to the king, even though it is not in according to the law. So if I perish, I perish.
All right. While you're reading, I see Jay has joined us on Facebook.
Hi, Jay.
Also, for all the folks on Spreaker, chat's open. If you want to chime in, you might want to do that later. I know we have folks listening that sometimes like to be incognito, let's just say. So, okay, as you see things play out here in chapter 4, Haman has revealed his plan. It's come into light, and Esther is getting ready to figure out what she's going to do. And she says, I can't do this. And Mordecai says, look, don't think you're going to be left out of this. You're one of us. And it's not going to bode well for you either. You're not going to survive this. So she finally sends him a message back and says, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to fast for 3 days. and figure out what God wants to do. We're not going to worry about what we want to do. We're going to worry about what God wants to do. But the thing is, he tells her, don't you think it's possible that you're in this position for just this reason? You were born for just such a time as this. And we look at that and we say, well, okay, what are we supposed to learn from it? What can we glean from this? And everybody says, oh, it's such a wonderful story that Esther was there. Boy, it was great that she was born at that time. And they forget that so are we. Mm-hmm. So let's look at some of the things that we may be born for such a time as this. You know, when we think about what's going on in the world today, we're dealing with the coronavirus. And yeah, it's overwhelming, right? The news is really hammering this thing out. And if you think American news is bad, try listening to like Sky News out of Great Britain or some of the overseas newscasters, because you weren't up for that this morning. But they are worse than we are. Yesterday, they found out that the health minister from Great Britain has contracted coronavirus, and everybody was going in and out of number 10 Downing Street. Whenever they do something like that, everybody stands out in front of this black door, and as people walk in, they try to get interviews with them. And what the one journalist said is probably a good thing I wasn't there, because somebody needed to correct her very sharply. There was one of the members of the cabinet was walking in, and she hollers out, "Have you had your corona checked today?" Which really I thought was kind of bad form, if you want to say it in my good British speak. But anyway, you know, it's affecting everybody right now. Whether you live in the United States, whether you live in another country, it's affecting you. But it doesn't have to be a scary monster, right?
Right.
In the northern hemisphere, spring is here. You know, at the latitude we live, you know, flowers are blooming, the trees are budding, and it is getting to be allergy season. Mm-hmm. So people are going to be sneezing. They're going to be,
coughing.
You know, the eyes are going to be runny. We need to understand that it just because somebody sneezes or somebody's blowing their nose, it's not corona. And I don't want to make light of it either. But at the same time, there's things that people are doing that are just ridiculous. I mean, you know, shelves are empty of really ridiculous things like toilet paper. Okay? You know,
were they going to be blowing their nose with it or wiping their eyes?
I don't know what they're going to do with it. But they're going to find a use for it because everybody's going to have it.
And nobody's going to buy it for $85 a six-pack.
Right. You know, there are many, many ways to kill every virus and bacteria that we're exposed to. But we really need to be smart and not overreact, right? There are products available that are pre-mixed, ready to made, and you know we're really used to that kind of stuff. Where all we have to do is spray something on. Hi, Rebecca. Glad you could join us tonight.
Hi, Rebecca.
All we have
Hi,
to do
Tina.
is
Hi, Carol.
Spray something out there, and it's supposed to take care of it, right?
Supposedly.
Well, let's see about that. There actually is hey, Robin's watching.
Hi, Robin.
There actually is a worldwide health company. You know, they promote healthy lifestyle using good stuff, living right. And I'm not going to give you the name of them.
You're right, Jay.
But this company is also in China. And they put out a press release the other day that outside of the Wuhan province in China, their operations are back up and running. Mm-hmm. And none of their people have contracted the virus. They've all been affected by it because they were quarantined and that kind of thing. But none of them contracted that virus. Interesting, isn't it? They also announced in that statement that this is a big deal because people look at them funny. Mm-hmm. So many people simply overreact. And the first thing we want to do is reach for the bleach, right?
Oh, no, 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 no. Say no to the bleach. No.
There's a lot of things we can do to protect ourselves. Those nasty little microbes, boy, if we could understand, they show pictures of them, right?
They're pretty.
Oh, they're neat, but I don't think that's exactly what they look like. Yeah. So, artist rendition of microscopic stuff sometimes isn't always accurate. But anyway, soap and water work very well, right?
Just lots of rubbing with the soap
Lots
and
of
water.
rubbing with soap and water because it takes time. It does. It doesn't happen, right away. But the problem is we have been trained to respond in a certain way.
Right.
If something happens, what do?
Panic.
We all run out to the store and buy the most expensive high-dollar gimmick we can find to fix something. And that's exactly what's going on. And we don't really have to do that. There's things in your home, chances are, that will help you avoid contracting the virus.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's some confusing things that come from the Center of Disease Control as well.
Yes.
Now, I was looking at their website this morning, and one of their statements, and I don't know if this is still on there, I hope it's been taken down. One of their statements is, it doesn't matter how hot the water is, you can't wash your hands in water hot enough to kill the virus. Right? You can wash it off, but you can't kill it with hot water. But if you drink warm liquids, like coffee, tea, or don't put ice in regular water, it's not supposed to harm you. You're not supposed to be able to, the virus can't survive. The virus can't survive, which I thought was really, really weird. Now, the Center for Disease Control also has a list of EPA pre-approved, pre-mixed stuff that will help if you want to go that way. Alcohol above 80% is effective, which is why people that are trying to make their own hand sanitizers out of vodka, it's a good thought. It just doesn't work in this particular case. The other thing, even if it starts out 80% and you add stuff to it, you're diluting it. So you lose some of that. Some people try to promote white vinegar. That does not work in this case. It won't touch the stuff. But it doesn't matter what cleaner you use, hydrogen peroxide is a very good alternative, right? Because just don't get it on your clothes because it will discolor some material. But it doesn't affect metal. You can spray hydrogen peroxide on metal, it won't corrode the metal. So that's a good alternative there. But don't think you can just spray it on and wipe it off.
No, it's got to sit.
It's got to sit on there, right? If you spray it on and wipe it off, it doesn't have time to work. Because what if they could actually do a video of those little things, what you would see is a battleground in microscopic sight, right?
It'd be like walking on water kind of thing.
Kind of, because what has to happen in order for, it is a battleground. Because these two things have to come together, and one defeats the other.
Right.
Right? We know which one's going to win every time, but they've got to defeat the other. You have to give them time to do that. As in any battle, it takes time to win.
Right.
And some things, work very quickly. Some things take a little bit longer. So spray it on, let it sit there. But be really, really smart. Don't expose yourself to harmful chemicals. Don't mix the bleach and ammonia.
No.
Don't do that.
No,
It's
that's the
not
worst thing
good
you can
for
do.
you. So why do I go through all of this when I start out with Esther?
I don't know. I guess you're going to tell us.
Have you ever heard? Well, I know you have. But many people have heard the old phrase, cleanliness is next to godliness, right?
Right.
Believe it or not, you can't find that in the Bible.
I believe that.
But, it was first written down by a man named Sir Francis Bacon, who was a philosopher and a scientist in 1605. He wrote, get this, cleanliness of body was ever deemed to proceed from a due reverence to God. Isn't that interesting? In 1605, in Great Britain, he writes down that cleanliness is next to godliness, pretty much, right? I thought that was kind of neat. Now, he wrote that. He was actually born in 1561. He died around 1621. They think he wrote that somewhere around 1605. So he was, in his midlife there and doing well. He probably was Church of England Anglican at that time. But it's interesting that a man named John Wesley, who gives us Methodism and the Wesley Church and all of those good things, his brother Charles wrote Amazing Grace. He would include in one of his sermons, and I got to read this, slovenliness, slovenliness, slovenliness is no part of religion. Cleanliness is indeed next to godliness. It was John Wesley who coined the term cleanliness is next to godliness. But he would have understood that slovenly, the word I just said that I can't say again, would mean the neglect of neatness, not necessarily cleaning the body. Wesley had a different context on this. Wesley thought, hey, you know what? All you people out there, you got to get cleaned up. You got to, you all are just being dirty. And he's telling folks, you've got to keep your homes clean, is what he was getting at in his sermon. Now, both of them were kind of hitting the mark, but both of them were kind of missing it too. Because if we really look at the Bible and really study the Bible, we're going to find out what it tells us. And this is where things get interesting. The first time the word wash shows up in the Bible is actually in Genesis 18:4. Abraham says, let a little water, I pray you, be fetched. He says, let me go get some water so you can wash your feet and rest yourselves under a tree. Isn't that interesting? Abraham, of all peoples, talk about how Abraham was so friendly and so willing to greet people. Well, this is really kind of cool because Abraham, and we all really think about Abraham, bringing the bread and bringing the wine, making sure that his company was comfortable. Before Abraham offers them anything to eat or anything to drink, he says, let me go get some water so you can wash your feet. And people miss this. They're like, well, it was just that hospitality at the time. It's what Abraham did. We see it later. Jesus washed the feet of the disciples after all. It was a Middle East custom. Well, it became a Middle East custom, but for a really good reason. I don't know how we miss this stuff, but we miss it all the time. We often think about the ancient people being like cavemen and Neanderthals, right? They were just as uncivilized bunch of barbarians. But the ancients were smart. They could weave fabric, they could dye fabric. They were obviously skilled in craftsmanship and metalworking and other things, right? They were washing their clothes. They were taking baths. They weren't this dirty bunch of barbarians that we think of. Now, they weren't, using like the scrub brush in the shower, probably, but you never know. They could have been. Think about this. Even Noah. Let's go back before Abraham and look at Noah. He and his family, while they were on the ark, They needed a way to make sure that the manure was handled properly.
Mm-hmm.
They needed a way to make sure that there's 3 decks of the ark, that they had fresh air flowing through there all the time.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
They needed to make sure that they, stayed healthy.
Right.
And they understood that staying healthy meant staying clean.
Yes, they did.
Now, again, th're not using the Axe spray and the deodorant. They're washing.
Washing.
They're taking time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
The simple act of washing was more important to Abraham than offering somebody something to eat. Because a basic, sound biblical principle that has been practiced over and over and over again. It's amazing. When you wash something specific off of your body. I'm not just talking about dirt, okay? You can scrub dirt, and what you're actually doing because of what happened in the garden, and I'm going back to Genesis, further in Genesis again, right? Because the answers are always in Genesis, just like I keep saying they are. When Adam and Eve sinned, and God laid out the punishment, there would be a curse on the earth. What you're actually doing is washing that curse off. You're allowing that flowing water to clean and remove that cursed earth. Mm-hmm. Back in the times we're talking about for Noah and Abraham, everybody thinks they were wearing sandals. Well, in the hot areas, I'm sure they were. But they did really have the technology. They had the understanding. If you wanted to keep your feet warm, you didn't wear sandals in a snowstorm. Okay? It's just that simple. You actually wore, I don't know if they were, how to describe them. They didn't tie like shoes today, but they actually had a way to sew the skins together. They wore leather skins, and it would wrap around. It's kind of neat when you see it. And we're actually getting a little bit back to that today. You see it with some of the shoe designs. It's kind of cool. But when you do that, you are actually cleansing that cursed earth off of your body. When you clean that cursed earth, it allows you to then be in a better state so you can receive the blessings God wants to give you, right?
Yes.
This is a sound principle that works from in the garden all the way through, and even the basic principles of what many of the Hebrews call mikvah, what turned into baptism, mm-hmm. It follows that through because that was the washing of their whole body. Hebrew has a couple of words for washing I'm not going to go into. But it's so important that this concept lived throughout the generations of the Hebrews, throughout even after the 10 tribes were lost. The Jews picked it up. But what's really, really cool, during the Dark Ages, we had this thing called the Black Plague at that time, the coronavirus of that day. Well, many people in Europe blame the Jews for spreading this Black Plague out. Mm-hmm. Because you're cursing us because there's not as many of you getting sick as there is us getting sick. Well, actually, Pope Clement VI, he wrote in 1348 that this wasn't so because, Jews were indeed dying. They just weren't dying in the same proportions as everybody else, right? Now, the Black Plague is spread through flea bites.
Right.
Well, the thing is, if you keep a clean environment, mm-hmm. you don't have as many fleas. Right? Mm-hmm. So, where people were staying in squalor, for lack of a better word, mm-hmm. and it was nasty, some of them were sleeping with animals. Right. The Jews weren't doing that. Mm-hmm. They separated themselves from that kind of thing. Yes. And that, again, goes all the way back to Exodus, this time where God tells them to separate the animals separate the latrine. You stay here, you stay clean, you keep your clothes washed, kind of a thing, right?
Right.
When you do that, you don't wind up with the typical infestation
Diseases.
of bugs and diseases. But isn't it funny that they were blaming the Jews because they weren't dying? Not enough Jews were dying to equal the number of people who weren't Jews that were dying, so that it must be you. Things haven't changed
Just
much.
go take a bath.
Things haven't changed much. When we actually study the Bible, we see that it has a solution for every problem in humanity. Our Creator has so much mercy that even in our punished creation that we're living in, the one that Adam handed to us, He gives us methods that we can use to live in this fallen and cursed world. And, it's really kind of funny because all we need to do is follow His instructions. Isn't it amazing when you come down to it that that's what it takes to help solve the problem? I have to include one more. In 2 Kings 12:13, we read, "And I will stretch over Jerusalem a line." I'm sorry, I'm laughing at this because it's just funny. "I will stretch over Jerusalem the line of Samaria and the plummet of the house of Ahab, and I will wipe Jerusalem as a man wipes a dish, wiping it and turning it upside down." Now, a lot of ladies are going to say, "See, men, you're supposed to be the one washing dishes." Right?
Some of them probably.
Now, I will confess, yes, I do. Here's the thing that I want to say about this. If you take your time and wash your dishes, guess where your hands are going to be? And I'm not talking about using a dishwasher. You're going to stick your hands...
Actually washing it in the
Actually
sink.
stick your hands in hot soapy water, right? Mm-hmm. And they're going to be in there for a lot longer, typically, than it takes you to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, or whatever it is.
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
however, whatever it is. So, you stick your hands in that hot soapy water, and it helps. Scripture is full of that kind of stuff. And all you have to do is follow the instructions. Exodus 19:14, Moses went down from the mountain to the people and consecrated the people, and they washed their clothes.
Oh my.
These aren't Neanderthals. These aren't barbarians. These folks were civilized people. God brings them out of where they were, and He teaches them how to live. And He says, if you'll live the way I'm telling you to live, you're not going to have to worry about all the things that bother everybody else.
Right.
So while cleanliness is next to godliness isn't in that can't be found, the concepts for it are there. And where this comes into play for us, especially today, when we think about the lessons of Esther and the celebration of Purim, here's the thing. We're here for such a time as this. And it's up to us to be the example to everybody else that you don't panic, you don't get upset, you don't hoard toilet paper that does you absolutely no good anyway for what you're facing, right?
Right.
Hey, Sean's watching.
Hi, Sean.
When it comes to this kind of stuff, I learned something when I was scuba diving a long, long, long time ago. And when you're in a situation, you stop, think, and get control. And that's what we need to do here. We need to just stop, and we need to think and get control of what's going on. And when we do that, we don't have to worry about all the other stuff. Be concerned? Yeah. Be careful? Yeah.
Yes.
But pay attention, follow God's instructions, and it's not something you have to be terrified of. Were there Jews in the Dark Ages who were contracting the plague and dying? Yeah, there were.
Oh, yes.
Are there going to be people who follow God's instructions that
Yes.
get sick from coronavirus? Yeah, there will be. But here's the other side of that coin. If that happens, their witness to the people caring for them, their witness to the people around them is equally important.
It is.
Because they're the ones that are going to be in that position to show other people that they shouldn't be, panicking. They shouldn't be too terribly emotional about this. And, Rebecca the other day posted something on Facebook, and I reminded her, I said, you realize, of course, you are attempting to put logic into an emotional situation. It doesn't work. And I guess that's what I'm trying to do too. But, I can take longer than a Facebook post to do it. There's the difference. So don't get weird about this. Just do the things you're supposed to do, the things you should have been doing anyway. Is it going to change your lifestyle? Yeah, but you know what? This whole thing's going to change people's lifestyle.
It is.
But we are here for such a time as this. Just like Esther was there in her time. We're here now.
That's right.
We are the example. We should be taking the lead on this. And it really surprises me the amount of people talking about not washing their hands. That just boggles my mind. We were in a place today, and the guy owns a restaurant, and he was talking about when he hires new kitchen help, he actually has to teach them to wash their hands. He has to remind them consistently to go wash their hands. Yeah, and we're sitting there talking to him, and I'm like, we eat in here, right? So, but it's the thing. It's the truth. He's in a situation where he is responsible for keeping people healthy in his business.
It's not just the washing; it's the cross-contamination washing.
Right. So you've got all that going for it too. But something as simple as basic hygiene that can help eliminate and eradicate this particular virus. The good news is there was a gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he is some guru with biology, and his specialty is in viruses. And he says viruses very, very rarely mutate forward. When they mutate, they degrade. So as this one degrades, as it mutates, we're going to see it, within a couple of years be nothing, just like the Spanish flu was back in 1918, I think it was, and all these other things. But there again, there's another example. If one of the things that came out of the Spanish flu outbreak of 1918 is wash your hands. They realized people were dirty, and if they cleaned themselves up, it didn't affect them as bad. So that is where we are today. We are here for such a time as this so that we can be the example. Esther, she was offered like 70 nations because the king, when she came to the king and said, I need to talk to you, he says, anything up to half of my kingdom can be yours. Just tell me what you want. She could have had half the kingdom and, had all that. Instead, she says, well, I just want to have lunch with you. And that's what we do.
What every good queen would like to have with her king.
and that's what we do. We are not out there to gain half the kingdom. We are there to be the example and say, yeah, we'll have lunch with you. Just don't touch me, right?
Just wash your hands
Just wash your hands first. Sean, if you're still with me and you remember to do it, because I might forget, I did talk about your book earlier, and if you want to put that link in the comments on Facebook, go right ahead, or I'll copy it in there later. Either one, it's okay with me. And that's really all I had for this evening, because what I needed to say, I think I have said, hopefully understandably. I hope. But really, it all comes down to just live the way your Creator designed you to live, and you should be good, right?
That's it.
All right, everyone. Till next week.
Be safe. Wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water. And we'll see you next week.
Wash the curses off and accept the blessings. Good night, everyone.
Good night.